welcome everyone to today's webinar. I have two fantastic guests from emnify that I am going to be introducing here in a second, but emnify's webinar today is focused on the top 5 best practices to accelerate your IoT business in 2023. I'm Ryan Chacon from IoT for All, so I'll kind of be the host and moderator for today's discussion with our experts. So next, what I'd like to do, I'd love to introduce our two experts from emnify, Chad and David. Welcome back. I know this is the second time we've done a webinar together, so it's fantastic to be together again. Let me go ahead and pass it real quick over to Chad if you want to do a quick introduction about yourself, and then we'll go over to David.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Again, we appreciate the time and able to join this webinar today. Again, my name is Chad Kerr. I am the Vice President of Sales here at emnify and the Enterprise Channel in North America. And we are super excited to kind of share some of our top 5 best practices and talk a little bit about, how you can accelerate your business through IoT. So thank you again for the time.
Fantastic. David, and would you mind also, David, give you a quick introduction to emnify once you kind of do an introduction about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everybody. This is David Garcia. I'm the product marketing manager here at emnify, and I am also a product evangelist. I am an IoT enthusiast, and I'm excited to be here and share with you guys our top 5 practices, like Chad mentioned. emnify is a cloud-based platform, management platform. We are essentially something that enables you to be able to manage the connectivity for IoT from a single pane of glass and allows you integrations and just a full enriched user experience that makes it a lot simpler for people to be able to go to market and provide the kind of customer-centric experiences that we're looking for. We've been around for close to 10 years already, and we were the first cloud-native platform that was out there. So I'm really excited to share what that means, because I know that it may seem a little bit like it's pie in the sky, but I think once we walk you through on what exactly the benefits are and what the differences is between the regular approach that people use for connectivity versus what emnify brings with their platform, it'll make a lot more sense.
Fantastic. Thank you both for those introductions. For our audience, we have a tab on the right-hand side of your screen as well for handouts that'll apply to pieces of the conversation today. We'll reference it throughout. We'll talk about it again at the end, but just letting you know that is there if you wanted to grab anything that we talk about today. So today's conversation is focused on, like we mentioned, the top 5 best practices to accelerate your IoT business in 2023. So we're going to cover how emnify's SuperNetwork platform can help you provision and manage deployments at scale. We're also going to explore real-world examples and use cases to show you how to maximize your IoT connectivity to achieve your business goals, and share practical strategies that you can put into action immediately to improve your IoT processes and drive business growth. But let me get out of the way here and let you two take it over. I'll jump back in if you have questions throughout, and then we'll do a nice Q&A at the end. But David, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And again, welcome everybody. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We hope you get a lot of value of what we have to present. So with that, let me go ahead and jump right in. So like we were talking earlier, today's focus is going to be about providing you guys not only insights into how to be able to navigate the connectivity landscape when it comes to IoT, but what exactly is it that you can take advantage of with a cloud platform to help you be able to have an advantage for your business to be successful for 2023. So my name is David Garcia. I'm the IT expert, like we mentioned earlier, and I'm here with Chad, my friend and colleague from our VP of Enterprise Sales. I'd like to start off by talking about some trends. So today, it's obviously no secret that IoT projects are going global, right? As you can see on the slide, you're talking about North America and Western Europe. With major cellular IoT markets, they have 156 million and 148 million IoT connections respectively. Now, what this means for these regions is that this is essentially, they're leading the way in the adoption of IoT technologies, right? So this means that there's a significant opportunity for growth in these markets. And if you look at the right, you're going to see that a lot of common use cases are things like, cellular for fleet optimization, energy conservation, EV charging, and smart building automation and asset tracking. Now, these present a really great opportunity for everybody that's looking to jumpstart and provide a lot more value and innovation in these markets. And we're going to talk a little bit about specific use cases and some of the trends in the IoT space when it comes to those types of innovations in these specific markets.
And I think to add, David, it's not just the enterprise space that are adopting this right now. It's from scale, from small business, medium business, all sorts of businesses are adopting this just to be able to optimize their business and be more efficient. So it's not just the enterprise space.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's a lot of times the little guy that ends up becoming the person who does
That's
the most
right.
disruptive technology, which is why I'm really excited if you're here for you guys to understand exactly how you can become more impactful with your technologies. So when you're looking at, the shift that's happening right now, everything is about a complete IoT platform solution, right? Everybody wants turnkey, ready to go, and a complete solution that's going to solve a problem, right? And part of that is going to be the problem of providing a more customer-centric, connected experience for IoT solution providers to their end users or their customers. That means that you're going to need to have access to data to make sure that you're able to access those insights and improve the customer experience with your applications. So if you look at these 4 different pillars that we have here, the first one is a personalized experience, right? So imagine, let's say you're at a retail store, Target, right? And you want to be able to use IoT sensors to track your customers' movements, their behavior, their buying patterns, and you take this data and you can analyze it. And now you're able to provide some personalized shopping experiences that are going to make product recommendations, right? You're going to be able to send personalized promotions. I can't tell you how many times I drive by a Target now and I get a notification letting me know that I'm by a Target, right? And I'm just waiting at the light. And sometimes they get me because I think, you know what? Actually, I got to go get some detergent. I'm low on Downy or whatever. So that's the kind of insights that people are able to take advantage of by incorporating IoT and understanding the data that's valuable from the users that are using their products or using their services. The other one is process optimization, right? So let's take, for instance, a logistic company that's using IoT sensors to track location and conditions of shipments in real time, right? So you can optimize the logistic processes, you can ensure timely and efficient delivery, which is great. But this is not only going to improve the customer experience and satisfaction, it's also going to give you a competitive edge because you're able to offer faster, more reliable shipping, which is really important, especially when you're talking about all the logistic issues that are happening right now. The other thing is the innovation that happens because if you're able to take advantage of, real-time data and integration of that data into your different processes and sharing it between your applications and your databases, that means that you're able to understand and adapt the market and your users' needs. So like if you think about a company like Ring, they started off with a doorbell, right? And then next thing you know, they have floodlights. And then next thing you know, they have window sensors. And the next thing you know, they have intercoms. And next thing you know, they understand that their users are looking for more and more security and they wanted to fully integrate it under one single app, right? So they're customer centric, they're focused on delivering wonderful support, and they have the technology that's not able to incorporate all of the different elements to focus on that customer centric platform solution. And then lastly, you have things like cybersecurity, which by the way is probably top of mind and should be top of mind with you if you're developing any kind of solution, especially if you're cloud-based, because being able to provide security and having security be top of mind during your messaging or just the way you communicate to your customers lets them know that you're able to really provide them a secure platform that's going to take their data privacy very seriously, which improves your reputation. But the benefit for you as well is that if you're able to incorporate these things and you have the visibility, you can start to provide, other revenue streams through things like security as a service, right? Which is really great because that's another innovation that comes from being able to understand your users' needs and understand the application and whether or not it's a critical component. And because of the cloud nature of a lot of the applications, if you look at this quote by Gartner here with a statistic about how 80% of enterprises are going to be adopting a strategy that's going to unify their web, their cloud services, as well as their private applications using a SaaS or SSE. So essentially what this means, I want you to think about this, okay? If you're going to sign up for a free trial or you're going to go on one of the AI tools that you're probably going to be trying to use, you're most likely going to have an option to use your Google to sign in, right? Or if you're an enterprise, you're most likely using SSO to be able to access different applications because everything is SaaS now. We're all using Office 365. Like everything's a distributed app that you're using. So that's why the security components of it and being able to unify it and give you much easier access means onboarding is going to be quicker. It's going to be a lot more secure. And if anybody leaves the company, it's a lot easier to disable access to everything in one single shot, which is a lot more convenient and a lot more secure. So that's why understanding how these components are really important when you're talking about the fact that we're all distributed now, not just our devices, but the users as well as the people providing the solution. Okay, so some of the other things that I want to touch on that are part of the benefit from understanding how, having a cloud-based infrastructure adopted as part of your strategy is that the innovations that we talked about earlier at the top of the webinar, when it came to some of the vertical markets that are starting to show innovation in this. Let's start with fleet innovation, right? That's one of the most popular use cases because it involves tracking vehicles and optimizing their routes. I think we can all agree that having routes that are not as traffic congested, mainly downhill and flat, are a lot better than hills that are going up, right? Or, having traffic completely derail your ability to deliver your services or make you late, and then it just makes a really bad experience, and people can't trust that you're going to be able to deliver things on time. So this not only is going to help improve your efficiency, but it's going to reduce your costs, right? The other one, another great example is EV charging, right? This is a great use case because as more and more electric vehicles are out there hitting the road, it's essential to have reliable and efficient charging infrastructure in place. I think, again, we can all agree just by looking around and talking to your friends, or if you own a vehicle that's electric, that's a problem right now. And it's a problem that needs to get addressed. And part of the reason why that's a problem is because there's a limitation to the way that these things are deployed or the way that they're able to maintain the reliable connectivity to do the charging, to be able to do the billing, to be able to make sure that these things are operational and the service is maintained. So, this is one of those reasons why having the EV charging, being able to deploy a lot quicker, provide more infrastructure is going to be key for everybody, especially because we're all moving towards EVs.
Oh, David, I'll give you a real quick. I'll give you a real example on EV charging. So I had a little mishap on my flight home from Berlin, and I got stuck in a certain city, so I had to rent a car. And ironically, they gave me a Tesla, and I said, "Oh, great! I want a Tesla." Never drove one, so I go and I'm driving, and I'm like, "Okay, I go 200 miles, and I got to find a station." I go to the first station. Oh, try to use my card, doesn't work, doesn't sync. All right, I got to drive a little further. I found another one. I couldn't find a supercharger station, which has all the right adapters and all that. So I had to drive 4 more places to try to find one. And I was on 0 battery life. And I was so scared that I didn't know what would happen if it ran out. So that is real life. Like the three places I stopped by, I couldn't get it to connect and get it to work.
And by the way, man, that happens so often. They actually call it range anxiety.
Okay, so now I know what it is.
Legit, that is called range anxiety, and that exists for a reason. So this is part of exactly what Chad just mentioned. That's exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about. That this is why these applications need exactly the things that we're going to talk about today. And the last one is obviously asset tracking, right? That's another critical case. It's a critical infrastructure, but this is a critical case because it enables you to track and monitor your assets in real time. So this is particularly useful because, again, supply chain and logistics are still a problem, and they're still with us today. So having these ability to provide this type of, supply chain management and real-time updates is critical, especially when you're talking about somebody that's working on projects that are dependent on having access to the assets or the goods that you're looking to deliver. So these are just a few of the cases that that are quickly growing in their adoption for IoT. And that sounds all well and good, and the trends and the way that people are moving towards the connected, integrated platform that's a user-centric with, fantastic experiences. So what's stopping it? Why isn't everybody doing that? Well, one of the biggest, actually, there's a lot of reasons, but 5 of the biggest ones that we have that we typically see are that, unfortunately, because most solution providers currently today are not using a cloud-based infrastructure, they're still relying on non-cloud native connectivity from the connectivity standpoint. These insights and access to the data that allow them to make these data-driven decisions are not possible because they don't have the ability to have the integration, the connectivity, the visibility, right? And so let's look at what these 5 different challenges that come from having a fragmented connectivity solution can bring to your solution when you're trying to go to market. Number 1, right? Fragmented coverage. If you're talking about a constantly changing coverage map and cellular technology, as an IoT business, managing multiple networks, multiple contracts, multiple SIMs, to access coverage, to be able to provide, the connectivity where you need it, when you need it, is going to add a lot of complexity, because a lot of this stuff for maintaining all of those connections is still done manually, right? So if you think about how complex and how much more involvement there is from your teams, as well as from, every part of operations or just deployment, you're talking about slowing down your time to market. The other one is the evolving regulatory requirements of existing and new markets. So, there's things like sunsetting technologies, or maybe you decided you were solving a problem in a local market, and turns out that market exists in other markets as well. So you're going to try to go in and provide your service there, but you don't understand that there's roaming issues, that there's certification issues, there's compliance issues, there's data privacy issues. You don't know that because you're just solving one problem, and there's a lot more nuance involved. And that's stuff that a lot of people learn as they grow and as they start to expand. But there's a better way to do that without having to worry about those challenges, right? The other one is the fact that managing devices and SIMs at scale is a really big problem, especially when you're talking about the number of devices as you grow and the geographical footprint. Like I just mentioned, you may find that you're able to provide this service in other countries. Having control and connectivity, control and management over your connectivity is really difficult. And it offers a really big obstacle for a lot of people, because then they're not able to provide the support or troubleshooting or resolving connectivity disruptions in a timely manner. So this is one of the things that delays people from being able to expand, because the reputation takes a pretty big ding. The other one is the lack of integration. So a lot of people don't discuss this enough, and this is one of the reasons why I'm excited for me and Chad to be here today, because Chad brings a lot to the table. He has worked in the traditional telco space with a lot of carriers, so he knows firsthand a lot of the limitations that come from the legacy infrastructure that people are utilizing to try to do disruptive IoT innovation, right? It's not going to work. You're not able to integrate it. It wasn't meant to. It was meant to serve local markets with voice and data, and that's not what IoT is about. IoT is about, distributed networks, integrations, about innovation and management and all that good stuff. So if you're trying to find your way to grow and scale, and you're trying to use traditional telco that's not meant for cloud native integrations and doesn't have the capabilities you're going to need, that's going to be a big problem, especially as you scale. And then lastly, because of the lack of visibility, because of the lack of integrations, because of the complexity that comes from having so many different carriers, so many different contracts, different time zones, different supports, different languages, you're going to have an issue when it comes to security. Because if you're having to worry about having your devices that are out there and you're managing different endpoint solutions for security on each one of those devices that's separate from the connectivity and the network management, that's always going to be a struggle, because you're never going to have real-time information about what's going on with your devices that are low resource, power constrained in remote locations. That's a recipe for disaster. Okay. And the fact that people are using a lot of things like solutions, typically IPsec or other VPNs, these things can take months. I mean, Chad, setting up IPsecs is not expensive. You need additional hardware, but you need to know your way around this stuff. I mean, you definitely can.
It takes months, right? From contract signature to implementation, all of those things. But I think as you go through all these challenges, right, what I hear from customers is they're trying to expand into new markets. Well, they're using multiple carriers trying to expand into new markets. They can't do that, right? They can't do that at scale. So it's time that's being used up, which then takes your operational and makes it, there's some deficiencies in your operational where you're trying to be efficient. So all of these challenges are real, that I'm hearing it from customers on a day-to-day basis.
That's right. So obviously we just sold you on this dream of all this cool stuff that's happening, and we kind of brought you back down with these challenges. But the reason we're doing this is because we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page, and we agree that this is indeed an issue that needs to be addressed. This is indeed something that needs to have a solution, and that there is definitely another better way to do this. And there is, because IoT connectivity is accelerating in the digital transformation. If you're not, then you're not going to be able to succeed. And that's why me and Chad were excited to have the opportunity to come and talk to you about the platform brings to the table. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, quick question for you guys. So let me ask, from your experience, how does an IoT business really keep pace with the changing business requirements, network technology, local regulations for IoT businesses?
Sure. So actually, I'm going to be covering some of that in a few more slides. But a good way to do that is, let's say, for instance, you're trying to deploy your devices for North America, right? And you were in another country, and the regulations there meant that you had to certify the devices to work properly on that network. You didn't realize that when you brought them over to this other network, now you had to do the same thing over here. Or maybe you're using different carriers, but they have different technologies that are available, and maybe they don't have 2G and some have 3G. So that can really create an issue for you if you don't have the ability to navigate or vacillate between different technologies. If you have a carrier, a multi-carrier option like an NBNO, which a lot of people may be familiar with, those things only solve part of the problem, right? Because they actually allow you to have the coverage that everybody's lacking. And yes, it is provided in a way that's more centralized. But again, the limitation with those types of solutions many times is that they have sponsors that allow them to access the networks in the regions where the people are deploying their devices. The limitation with that is that depending on the agreements that they have, you're going to be jumping from one core to another core, which means that the experiences are going to be different, right? Just like if you have different carriers, they offer their APIs may not be as good, the integrations may not be available, the support may be absolutely horrendous, right? Or maybe you don't have access to the real-time information about the network status or events that are going on. So that's the big problem. So if you're really looking to be able to go and expand into new markets and reduce the complexity and make it a lot easier, you need something that addresses the coverage issues that you're going to have and the consistent experience that you want to provide your users. And that's kind of where we fall in, and that's kind of what I'm going to be going into.
Okay.
Maybe you guys a deeper dive about.
Perfect. Well, I'll let you get to it.
Thank you, my brother. So like we were mentioning, actually, Ryan, that's a fantastic segue because that's a good introduction into what we're going to talk about now, which is how do you accelerate your digital transformation so that you can be in line with what you're trying to do with your application and solution technology? Well, we're going to have a few best practices that we're going to need to follow, right? And then part of that is going to be understanding that number one is going to be, I need to have reliable coverage, right? That's obviously the first thing everybody thinks about. But when you're talking about a distributed device network with distributed users, you should also be thinking about distributed networks, right? So I want to connect those dots for you because part of being able to have the IoT connectivity you need means that you're going to need reliable, efficient connectivity and solutions that are going to enable you to be faster and transfer your data more securely and reduce your latency. Now, I'm making these points for a reason, because a lot of people that are trying to take advantage of this disruptive technology or providing solutions like that use machine learning or artificial intelligence, they're going to start to struggle. And actually, they're complaining today. And I'm sure you guys are probably struggling with this as well if you have anything like that. Latency is a huge problem. And if you're using local carriers are focused on delivering service to their local users, right? So if you go outside of that, they have infrastructure that's set up for that local area. So anytime the data is outside of the bounds of where they're servicing, that means that the data then has to go all the way back to the same tower in the same location, which is going to add latency, which is no good for a lot of applications. And that's the big problem that we have, is that not only are you overlaying the challenge of connectivity for your devices with changing coverage, sunsetting technology, new technologies that you wish you could take advantage of that nobody really educated you on, but then also the issues that happen with latency that you were not even aware of. So that's why we're here to be able to talk about that stuff. One of the things that we do to be able to help you address those is I just mentioned to Ryan that, a lot of times MVNOs are the answer for a lot of people because, hey, I don't have to worry about all the different carriers that I'm going to have to do business with and, the support and the languages and the time zones, yada, 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 right? But the thing is, if they have sponsorships, you're going to kind of be dependent on their agreements with the local carriers on your behalf. So what does that mean? That means that priorities are going to be placed on certain carriers regardless of whether or not they are the best option for you in that specific location for the service and the signal strength that you're going to need, right? So that can be a problem. Additionally, since they don't have a direct access to the network information because they're going through a sponsor, they don't have full visibility. And I'm sure a lot of you, if you've already used some MVNOs, you know that if you have a disruption in your service, you have to call them to then them have to find out exactly what's happening and manually switch you over, right? So although it is a much, much better solution, trust me, I fully am happy that they're here. There's something that we still need to improve on, and that happens to be the fact that if they don't have a direct agreement, like we are able to offer you, they're not able to get direct access to the information of what's going on with the network, right? And that means that if you don't have the ability to automatically switch between those networks, you really don't have the redundancy that you want to be able to provide your customers, which means that you're going to be struggling with providing consistent, reliable connectivity to the data. And like we mentioned at the top of the webinar, the data is important for the insights that you're going to need to make the data-driven decisions, okay? Another cool thing about being able to have direct partnership agreements with the carriers is that we're able to expand and add a lot more networks. So this is part of our strategy because we're IoT focused. That's all we do. It's not our side hustle, right? We're not doing voice and a bunch of other stuff. We're just doing nothing but IoT. That's our expertise, and that's our main domain that we're trying to provide the most exceptional experience for our customers. So this is why understanding the importance of having direct network agreements and having distributed cores and redundancies is really important when you're thinking about being able to provide the type of experience to your customers that's customer centric. Okay. Now, best practice number 2, you want to adopt a connectivity management platform that's going to have consistent capabilities worldwide. Okay. Now, I just mentioned to Ryan earlier when he asked me that question about how do you address those changing dynamic requirements for businesses when you're doing, especially if you're doing stuff globally. And so that's part of what we're talking about: streamlining your connectivity management, having consistent experiences, not worrying about, hey, I'm going to be deploying in this area, and now I don't have the ability to be able to serve my customers because I don't have 2G. I only have 3G here, or I only have 4G, or I don't have access to LTE-M, or I don't have access to the insights on the connectivity because I can't integrate it, right? That's a really important thing that we need to consider. I want to have the same experience. I don't care where I deploy. I don't care if it's in Brazil, if it's in Japan, or if it's in California. And also, I want to be able to give my customers the same user experience on the same platform, regardless of where they're deploying. And I want to make sure that they have access to the latest and greatest technology and any emerging technologies as they come. And if anything sunsets, they don't have to worry about it because that next technology is going to be available for them, and it's going to be a seamless transition. They're not going to have to worry about, version control, SIM swaps, or being able to provide the right support or not having access to data. All right. So this is why. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was like, I'll give you real life situations, right? You deal with, I worked for some other companies before, and you have this 2G, 3G sunset, and the customers have these devices in play, and they're waiting until the last minute, right? To the last possible minute before they have to refresh these devices because 2G or 3G was sunsetting. That becomes a major problem for these customers. And because they wait and they have one carrier. In our situation, if it changes, we can adapt with them because of, the agreements that we have and the network coverages and all those things that we support.
Yep, that's right. Also, additionally, guys, I'm glad that Chad brought that up because pricing, you have consistent pricing. If you have a direct agreement, you're going to pay the same per megabyte. It doesn't matter where you deploy, and you're going to have that consistent experience, which means that you're going to be able to provide a much better pricing structure for your customers as well. That's going to be transparent, which, by the way, we all know that billing can be a nightmare, especially when you're talking about having to manage individual carrier agreements with everybody. You don't know what you're paying for half the time. The other time, if there's any issues with billing, it's not integrated, it's separate. So you have a lot more things to juggle and navigate when you're providing the connectivity. Right? Well, that's a big problem.
And customers want it to be easy to do business with somebody. That's the big thing, right? That's the big, because time is money, and then that's the biggest thing there.
Yep. Every time you don't have access to data, not only are you losing money because you don't have access to data, you're also spending money because you're spending resources on trying to make sure that stuff is connected again. So you should also keep that in mind. Which brings us to best practice number 3. You want to have a single pane of glass for centralized SIM lifecycle and connectivity management. That's a really big deal, because if we're talking about being able to have a optimized customer-centric approach, you want to remove as much of the friction and as much of the unnecessary going back and forth between platforms or accessing information. You want to be able to turn your obstacle into a business accelerator, literally, right? Thinking about the fact that you no longer have to worry about version controls for SIM cards regardless of where you deploy. Thinking about the fact that you're able to scale a lot faster, because as soon as you drop this thing in whatever environment you're going to drop it in, as soon as it's booting up, you've got cell signal. And you don't have to worry about whether it's sex signal that's preferred because of a contract that's made by an arrangement from a sponsor, right? It's literally the best possible signal for that device at that very moment when it powers on, okay? And then also having the ability to manage the volumes, the use cases, or adding devices and having that consistent set of services and feature, that's really important, especially when you're talking about having a scalable deployment and you're talking about the resources involved and being able to manage everything, right?
When you talk about having thousands and thousands of devices out there, right? Being able to do this is key. I've seen it time and time again when customers have thousands of devices, they don't know where they're at, they can't even manage them. So this is very important.
Yep, exactly, my friend. And then the other thing is, so here's the best part, and I think you guys should really be aware of this one. So all that good stuff that we just talked about with the coverage, the redundancy, the direct network agreements, the distributed platform that allows you to be wherever you are, whenever you need it. eSIM, if you guys are not up on this, if you're not aware of this, if you haven't really heard much about it, but you've been curious because you've been seeing it around, this is definitely the way to go. I guarantee if you're not doing this and you're not looking into it, you're going to be left behind. The upcoming 2G, 3G sunset is going to be a devastating event for a lot of solution providers that haven't been preparing for it because they've been delaying it. So they've been kind of resting on that. But trust me when I tell you, as soon as that thing goes offline, there's going to be a lot of services that are going to be disrupted, and there's not going to be enough field technicians in the world to be able to address the demand that's going to come from everybody trying to do the swap at the same time. SIM swaps are a big problem. And especially if you think about the limitations that come from using SIM cards from local carriers. A lot of them have expiration dates. And a lot of you guys have businesses that have seasonality. Why is that not a good mix? Well, my friend, if you have a SIM card that has been deactivated for 6 months, 3 months, and you try to reactivate that service again, good luck. That thing is now no longer going to work. It's null and void. You're going to have to swap that SIM card out. So think about that times whatever number of devices that you have out there. And think about those things trying to connect to a network or a band that no longer exists. What are you going to do? Well, if you have an eSIM, that's no longer a concern for you because you're going to automatically be able to connect or change or add new carriers or add new coverage or add new technologies, and it's all done over the air. Everything is software-based now. That's where we are. So your SIM card should have that same capability as well, because this is not only going to be able to help prevent you having to go out there and change out the SIM card to change to a new carrier, to change from 2G to LTE-M. You're going to be able to take advantage of new technologies, things that are going to be upcoming, 5G, satellite, or even new capabilities like IoT Safe, which is essentially going to provide secure elements for the devices through a SIM card, right? There's way too many benefits that come from this new technology that help address the last limitation that we were talking about. The first was the lack of coverage, right? And the complexities that came from a bunch of different carriers. And then comes the solution of the MVNOs. Okay, some of those are able to provide you multi-carrier coverage, and that's great. And then you're able to deploy globally. That's awesome. But now imagine not having to swap out the SIM card or not having to worry about, oh, there's a new carrier, there's a new technology. Well, I still have to swap out the SIM because it's in the older version and that profile doesn't support it, right? Those are the things that no one tells us. And that's why I and Chad are super psyched to be able to have this conversation with you guys and at least share that insight. If nothing else, just know that eSIM,
It's a
please.
game changer. Game
Yes,
changer.
brother, you know, it's by far one of the biggest things that's going to happen with IoT. And if you're not up on this, trust me, you're going to get left behind. And there's really no reason why you shouldn't. It's worth the investment. Trust me. All right. So now that we understand that, you know, there's a lot of benefits to being able to adopt the cloud platform because of the technology and the coverage and the redundancy and all that good stuff, we haven't talked about the lack of integrations enough, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that you're talking about with IoT. You're talking about data, okay? You're talking about an IoT stack with applications that are cloud-based. You're talking about front end and back end, right? You're talking about the need to integrate the data to be able to do things like actionable insights or be able to start navigating and creating new revenue generating opportunities or be able to provide new disruptive technologies or just be able to improve your efficiencies or be able to enhance your scalability. Or what about being able to use machine learning or algorithms for security or anomaly detection? That stuff is not possible if your connectivity is not integrated. And if you're using old architecture that's not cloud-based with your cloud-based IoT solutions, that's incompatible. That's why it's important to understand that whatever you're going to adopt needs to be able to play nice and integrate into whatever it is that you're using, because that's a real, full, complete end-to-end solution that you're going to be providing to your customers and to the market, right? You're going to be able to accelerate your time to market. You're going to be able to use APIs. You're going to be able to use data integrations. You're going to be able to reduce your test and development costs. You're going to be able to simplify your technology stack. Nobody wants to have a lot of different platforms or a bunch of different one-off integrations or a bunch of different, you know, a lot of technologies that are not compatible, because that just adds technology debt, right?
Just doesn't allow anything to work, right? Nothing talks together. Got old antiquated systems trying to do a up and coming system, and it's just it doesn't work that way, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, customers trying to get expanded to new markets, all of these things, they can't do this.
No, imagine trying to go to market or provide a new feature and you can't because of the limitation of the infrastructure for the connectivity. That would be the worst. Imagine having that ability to do that, but the only thing holding you back is your connectivity. So that's exactly why integrations are really important for these types of solutions. And the last one is really important. And this is another reason why adopting a cloud-native mobile core network with robust security features is really important, kind of like what we do. So I just mentioned about the distributed core, and I mentioned direct network agreements. What I didn't mention was data privacy, right? And I think that a lot of people, once they start being able to deploy in other countries, they start to quickly realize that data privacy is more important than ever, because they want to know how you're handling the data, what you're doing to encrypt the data, what you're doing to maintain the integrity of the data, and whether or not you're able to maintain the data locally, because it's not allowed to travel outside the bounds of the country that it's being generated in. And that's when having a distributed core really starts to matter, because instead of having to worry about the technology being in your home base, now the technology is anywhere your devices are and anywhere your users are. So let's talk about some of those benefits. Number one, you're going to be increasing the protection of your IoT devices and your data, because stuff is going to be done locally, processed locally, and accessed locally. It's no longer going to be routed to some other place that's outside of the bounds of where you're allowed to do business or where you're able to do, generate data or process data. Plus, it increases your IoT device time and lowers your cost, because you no longer have to worry about additional processing at the edge with your devices, or having endpoint devices that are separate from your network, which again, like I said, doesn't give you real-time visibility, which means that anomaly detection is just about impossible, okay? Or being able to comply with your organization's security policies. Do you guys understand how much IT is gonna love you if you walk in and you're telling them that your device generates data that is native, that's cloud-based, and that can be integrated easily into whatever backend or infrastructure they have in place they use to monitor or to spot anomalies or to be able to be compliant. That's game-changing stuff. If you are anybody who's deploying and trying to connect your devices and use the network locally of your customers, good luck with that. That stuff is almost completely gone away. And the reason for that is because they can't trust you. Why should they? They don't know exactly what you have going on in the technology stack that you have. They don't know how compliant you are. They don't know how risk averse you're going to be when it comes to being able to provide the right security for their solutions. They don't know how much of a security stance you have for what you're trying to provide to the customer. And if you're connecting to the local network, now you have access to everything. So that's why cellular is becoming such a great option, because it's an own private network, right? And then the fact that you're able to not only provide a private network, but now you provide visibility into that data in real time to whatever systems they have in place. My friends, that's exactly what everybody's looking for. They want to be able to be fully transparent. They want to be encrypted. They want to be secure, and they want to be able to have the right tools in place to provide the visibility so that you can confirm exactly what you're telling the customer that you're doing with their data is exactly what's going on with their data, right? Now that we understand these 5 best practices and we understand the benefits of a unified, resilient IoT network, right? And we see that reducing the complexities of your IoT connectivity by following these 5 practices, you're going to be able to have the coverage, the dynamic capabilities to meet the demands of your markets. You're going to have scalable deployments, which is huge because you're no longer going to be limited by your connectivity. It's no longer an obstacle. Remember, guys, now it's a business accelerator, okay? And integrations. That's awesome because now you're able to provide visibility. You're able to provide real-time analysis. You're able to provide real-time insights, and you can make data-driven decisions. And you have security because you have visibility. And I see Ryan joined us, my brother.
I wanted to ask you all a question that comes up in a lot of my discussions around advice for streamlining the connectivity and the connectivity management side of things, right? Like we have, when it comes to managing multiple vendor relationships, for a lot of people, that seems like a very challenging task. So how do you approach that question, or what kind of advice do you have for people out there that may be curious about how to think about that?
Oh, great question. Actually, that's a really great question. So here's the thing. Like we mentioned earlier, with the complexity that comes from having to manage all the different, carriers and all that stuff, if you told somebody, hey, you're going to be able to take advantage of AT&T, T-Mobile, and you're being Claro in Colombia, or the different networks, any network you're on that you prefer right now, but you're going to have one person that you're going to talk to, right? That's going to be able to handle any issues that are going on any network that you're roaming on. 2, you're going to have access to the real-time data of what's going on any network that you're on through one single platform on one pane of glass. And then 3, you're going to be able to manage the billing. You're going to be able to integrate that data. You're going to be able to quickly be able to enhance the experience of your users, because now that data, the connectivity, if something goes wrong, you'll quickly understand whether it's my device that failed, if it's my application that crashed, or if it's my network that's offline. And by the way, you don't have to worry about calling anybody to switch over to the next one, or you don't have to worry about doing a truck rollout. That thing is going to automatically switch to the next best possible signal that's provided by the next best carrier in that same area, automatically, right? So now I've removed the 5 biggest complexities that come from being able to provide connectivity for your devices, right? That's kind of what having a unified platform that's able to work on top of the layers of whatever network you're on provides you. And the fact that it's a distributed, global, cloud-native infrastructure means that it's way more secure, it's redundant, right? And it's always going to have the latest and greatest when it comes to security patching, which is another big obstacle that people have. Imagine having to add that on top of, the connectivity and the data and the pricing and all that other good stuff. So all the things that keep people from being able to really scale or move forward or address the challenges for providing good coverage are all done under one roof, right? So that's kind of the biggest the biggest thing that comes. And now with an eSIM, now you're talking about a unified platform, global coverage under one single SIM that you never have to swap.
And I think it goes back to what I say this all the time, and my people always laugh at me because I say we have to make it easy to do business with, and this makes it easy to do business with, and that's what customers want on their end too. They want to make it easy to do business with them as well. So adopting the practices is testimonial by paramount, actually.
That's right. So now, last thing I talked about, we said in the top of the hour that a lot of these are going to benefit you, but I want you guys to understand exactly what this means for you, especially in the different roles that are part of the organizations that are in charge of managing the products, right, and the solutions. So from an operations standpoint, okay, if you're an operations manager, all right, you are in charge and responsible for overseeing daily operations of a business, right? You have to make sure that everything runs smoothly, right? You have to make sure that everything's efficient. And a lot of times your duties are going to include creating and implementing policies and procedures, right? Managing budgets and finances, and coordinating and supervising staff. You have to monitor inventory, supply chains. It's a lot, okay? They're the lifeblood a lot of times of an organization because they make sure that the customers are happy, things are running smoothly. So if you're telling this operations manager, they no longer have to worry about all the different carriers that they have to manage, integrating all of those to their operations to be able to monitor and manage any connectivity disruptions that are happening, and being able to have the manpower necessary to answer the calls and resolve issues in a timely manner and provide feedback to their customers. Oh, and also worry about the deployments and making sure that those are done efficiently, that you improve those over time instead of having additional delays because you have 3 different connectivity. You have Wi-Fi, you have cellular, you have LANs, and then also your field technicians are not the most skilled when it comes to the technical stuff. They do what they do beautifully, but they're not IT guys. So if I'm telling you, you no longer have to worry about whether or not the guy's an IT guy, because this SIM card, as soon as you plug it in, you're going to have access to the data. And by the way, Mr. Operations guy, if this thing is not connecting, you'll be able to tell why, because you're going to have complete access to exactly what's going on in the network. You're telling me that that's not going to be valuable for him? You're telling me that him being able to provide a much quicker ability to respond to customers and know why they're calling before they even pick up the phone because they see on the dashboard exactly what's going on is not going to be valuable to him? You're going to tell me the reduction in operating costs are not going to be impactful to his ability to do his job or to be able to serve more customers with the same amount of people? That's the power that comes from being able to adopt this type of mindset and this type of platform for you if you're an operations manager, okay? What about if you're a product manager? What exactly are your responsibilities as a product manager? Well, if you're a product manager, you're responsible for cross-functional teams to develop and launch a successful product, right? So that means that you have to meet market demand. That means that you have to monitor and optimize for the performance. You have to do data-driven decision-making, and a lot of that stuff is done through ideation, which means that you need data. You need constant access to data about the user experience and possible new innovations that you can offer, new features, or things that maybe are going to disrupt the market. You can't have that if you're constantly struggling with integrations, lack of integrations, security threats, or bad user experiences because people can't set up, pay, or access your services because they don't have access to it because the connectivity is no bueno, right? This is why, for me, this is super important. If nothing else, I think about the lack of resources that people have. I think about the amount of work that people have on their plates. I think about the responsibilities. I think of the fact that everybody's struggling because we don't have enough people. People are changing jobs. You know, everybody's really constrained right now and they're under a lot of stress.
And
so
to add that the technology is always changing, Dave. That's the technology changing daily. So this is very important to that.
Exactly. That's a great point, Chad. So, you know, I just want to show you guys what this looks like in action. So this might have seemed like theoretical or, hey, this would be nice if you did. This is what it actually looks like because we have a ton of customer testimonials and a ton of different use case applications you guys can go check out on our website. So here's a perfect example. EV charging. right? So B Charging is the second largest charger station provider in Italy. Okay, for them, this is a critical infrastructure. This is power, right? So security is top of mind for these guys, and not only that, but deployment and being able to do the commissioning, that stuff is necessary because, like we said, the more EVs that are out there, the more of these infrastructure we need in place. And one of the big problems, if you guys may or may not know, there is a protocol that's commonly used that was widely adopted in the charging space that's called OCPP. It's an open protocol. The problem with it is that it comes with absolutely no built-in security features in the older versions of it, right? The new versions have a more encryption and security that's included. The way they overcame that was they used other protocols like HTTPS or MQTT. Okay, if you're familiar with those, you'll understand what I mean. But those were used in place to help avoid that limitation. But it was still a vulnerability. So for these guys, the ability to connect their cloud-based infrastructure to our cloud-based infrastructure meant that now everything was going to be hosted on AWS environment, which meant that it was not only going to be easier to be able to access the data and share the data from their front end and back end applications, but they were also going to be able to secure it. And that was super critical for these guys. And all the other benefits meant that now these guys were able to improve their efficiency sixfold. Think about that, guys. They improved their efficiency sixfold. They made their applications more secure. And because they were able to integrate the data, here's another cool thing they were able to do. They were able to do anomaly detection in real time with algorithms, which was awesome because that was never possible before if they would have had all the different carriers they were managing. Okay. And then we have in C2, these guys are disrupting the industry for water monitoring. Okay. So one of the things that was really amazing for me to learn about this company was that 90% of the devices are not connected in the industry for water monitoring. These are swamps. These are lakes. These are, they're in the middle of nowhere. Think about the difficulties that you would have with somebody having to physically go and check these things, document or write down the information that's on these devices that are smart enough to communicate, but just didn't have the infrastructure to do it with, right? That's exactly what this stuff can do for you. It allows you to be disruptive. It allows you to be innovative, and it allows you to do it at a faster pace with a lot more ease without having to do anything else except just incorporate this into your workflows, right? So this is really the value that we're bringing to a lot of, like we said, it's not just about large enterprises. You could be a little guy. You could be a little guy that has a big idea, and we can help you power that big idea. And that's exactly what you need to be able to scale. So this is why, for me, this was a really important topic for us to have. But just as important as disruptive technologies or implementation or integrations are important, you know what else is really important? And I'm sure you'll agree. I know Chad knows this: support. If you're talking about a lot of this new technology and integrations and stuff, everybody needs a lot of support. And so one of the things that we're really proud of here at emnify is the fact that we offer really great device support, pre-sales to help you with the cloud integrations, proof of concepts, device validations. And even afterwards, we have dedicated customer success managers that help you with the event level cross-network visibility. We have live in-person troubleshooting. If you need that, there's options for you as well, and premium same-day support services. So this is all the stuff that you guys are probably struggling with being able to access because you have a lot of different account managers. Chad, please back me up.
That's what I'm saying. Is that we look at this and we help bring their ideas to life, right? Because we have pre-sales support. They're looking for devices, right? We help them direct them in the right direction, right? Whether it's going to go with emnify or not, we're still consulting them along the way to help them get to market, right? Because there's a lot of good ideas out there. There's ideas that they've already have in place, but maybe they're selecting the wrong device because to be able to have a broader reach with the carrier. So we help with all of that. And then again, post sales is just as important, right? Once you get these devices deployed and out there running, you need to have some technical experts to help you along the way, just in case if there is some sort of hiccup. And that's what we do. And that's what we pride ourselves on. And I think something shows on the next slide, our satisfactions, right? You see that? So that's the key, right? It's support. It's having everything in place to take care of every customer.
Yep, exactly. So this is the last little bit of commercial that we're going to do, but it's a big important one for me because I I firmly believe at the end of the day, we are all technology providers. We provide solutions, but we can never forget we serve people. So the fact that we have such a high customer rating and people are so happy with our service, and the awards for the technology, the innovation that we got, like best connectivity solution for World Mobile Congress last year, that's great. That definitely, it lets us know that we're on the right track. But I think for me, seeing the high satisfaction scores from our customers, that speaks volumes to me, because that means that we're actually doing exactly what we're here to do, which is support the people that are behind the technology that's providing the solutions that we all need.
And let me add to that, David, really quick. Support
brother.
is twofold, right? It's support as far as the technical side, the people side, but think of our relationships that we have with the carriers. That adds the other support, right? If we don't have the partnerships that we have with the carriers, we can support you, with people on the technical side, but we also need to be able to support you with the carriers, right? And that's what our agreements allow us to do, have better access to the carriers as well.
Yep. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope you guys got some value out of this. We'll go ahead and move over to Ryan. We have a few minutes left. I wanted to see if there was any questions or anything that we can talk about.
Fantastic, guys. Well done. Very insightful. A lot of passion, energy. Loved it. I had a quick question that came in from Olivia is how can Olivia and others get in touch with you guys for a consultation?
Oh, great question. Actually, we have this
code right there is me. Like, you scan that and you can set up a meeting with us or follow us on LinkedIn or
LinkedIn for sure. I definitely have a large network, and I'm always on LinkedIn too.
Perfect.
I'd love to engage with anybody on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, looked like there was a link thrown in the chat, emnify.com/talk-to-us, as well as the LinkedIn address as well. So just, I guess, before we wrap up, because we have about 2 minutes left, I wanted to ask you all, when it comes to an eSIM, is an eSIM, for those of you who may not be as familiar, is an eSIM an embedded SIM only, or how is that, like, how do you kind of discuss that with somebody?
Yeah, that's a great question. An eSIM it can be anything. It could be embedded. It could be on the actual chip itself. It could be the regular plastic SIMs, the different form factors that you currently are using. It can be anything. That's the best part about eSIM, is that you don't have to worry about, oh my God, are my devices incompatible? I don't have the ability to have integrated. I have old GPSs. No, you can use your same devices with the same SIM card in the same form factor, except now it's going to be an enhanced version of a SIM card. It's going to be an eSIM.
Let's not confuse it though with the eSIM that's on an iPhone, right? It's not that. So people get that confused very often. It's not that. So it's actually still a physical SIM.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I don't want to run over on any potential answers. So it looks like we can wrap up here. Thank you both so much for your time. Audience, thank you for attending. Any questions, thoughts additionally after this, please reach out to David or Chad or directly to the emnify team. They'd be happy to talk to you. But other than that, thanks again for being here, and Chad and David for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. Have a wonderful rest of your week, guys.